Welcome to Nonfiction Insights.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going to dive deep into Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, let's jump right in with habit 1. Be proactive.
Okay, so what's interesting right away is Covey's focus on that space between what happens to us
Right.
and how we choose to respond.
Okay.
He calls it our responsibility,
I like that.
the ability to choose.
Yeah.
Our response,
Mhm.
simple idea, but big implications. We're not just puppets of our circumstances.
Yeah. So instead of feeling like we're at the mercy of events,
Right.
we have this power to choose.
Right.
And Covey talks about reactive language versus proactive language. Could you just give a quick breakdown of the difference there?
Sure. Reactive language, it often sounds like there's nothing I can do, or he makes me so mad. Kind of puts the control outside of ourselves.
Right.
Proactive language takes ownership. Let's look at our options, or I can choose how I react.
Right.
It's about shifting from blame to agency. And what really connects with that is his circles of concern and influence.
Ah, yeah, the visual of those two overlapping circles. How would you explain that to someone who's never encountered that before?
So imagine this big circle, and it's everything you care about. Environment, world events, your neighbor's habits, everything. That's your circle of concern. Now, inside that, draw a smaller circle.
Okay.
And it's the things that you can actually do something about. Your health, your work performance, your relationships, that's your circle of influence. And so Covey's point is that effective people focus their energy on that circle of influence.
Okay.
It's not ignoring the bigger issues. It's about, channeling your efforts where you can actually make a difference.
Makes sense. Why get stressed over something you have zero control over, right?
Exactly.
The book shares this example of business owners facing environmental shifts.
Right.
How did their proactive approach differ from a reactive one? And what was the result?
Yeah. So the reactive business owners, they felt helpless and they spiraled into negativity.
Oh, okay.
They were focusing on those external pressures that they couldn't change.
Right.
But the proactive ones asked, what is our response?
Okay.
And just that question, it shifted their focus to what they could control, their strategies, their innovations, and it led to positive action, adaptation.
Interesting.
Powerful reminder that even in overwhelming situations, there's usually something within our power to address.
So it's about finding that lever that we can pull. What about when we mess up? How does being proactive play into handling mistakes?
So this is key. A proactive person sees mistakes as learning opportunities.
Okay.
Acknowledge it, correct it if you can, and learn from it.
Right.
He contrasts that with covering up mistakes, which is a mistake of a different order.
Right.
Because you're compounding it by avoiding responsibility.
Got it.
And hindering growth. So it's owning our actions.
Okay, that's habit 1. Now let's move to habit 2. Begin with the end in mind.
Okay.
This one sounds a bit more abstract. What's the core idea?
So habit 2, it's about mental creation preceding physical creation.
Okay.
Think about an architect designing a building before they lay the first brick.
Right.
Covey says everything is created twice, first in our minds, as a vision or a plan, and then in reality.
I see.
And if we don't consciously design our lives, we end up living by someone else's design.
The book uses this really striking visualization, funeral exercise. Can you walk us through that and why it's so powerful?
So he asks you to imagine your own funeral, sometime in the future.
Okay.
Picture your family, your friends, your colleagues, people from your community.
Right.
And they're all speaking about you.
Okay.
What do you want them to say? What kind of husband, wife, parent, friend, professional do you want to be remembered as?
Right.
And this exercise, it might be uncomfortable, but it makes you face your core values.
Yeah.
And what truly matters at the deepest level. It helps you define your personal end.
That's a powerful way to cut through the noise and identify what's important. And so this vision of our end informs the importance of having a personal mission statement.
Exactly. So your personal mission statement, it becomes like your personal constitution.
Okay.
A set of principles that guide your decisions and actions no matter what.
Got it.
A stable core in a changing world. And Covey talks about all these different, life-centered paradigms people adopt.
Yeah.
Being focused on spouse, family, money, work. What are some of those weaknesses he points out in relying solely on those external anchors?
Well, it seems like if you put all your eggs in one basket or all your weight on one of those, you could become pretty vulnerable.
Right.
if your whole sense of security is wrapped up in your job,
Right?
and you lose your job, well, that can be devastating to
Exactly.
your whole identity. The book mentions limitations in terms of security, guidance, wisdom, power
Yeah,
for all those single-focus paradigms.
exactly. Like money-centered might offer a certain type of security, but it might lack in like ethical guidance
Right.
or a broader sense of purpose. And that's why he champions this principle-centeredness as the most effective one. So your life is based on timeless ethical principles like integrity, honesty. It gives you a much more solid foundation.
That makes sense. Because principles are constant, whereas external circumstances can shift. So how can we practically start to begin with the end in mind?
So Covey suggests using our right brains more intentionally through visualization. Like writing that eulogy we talked about, visualizing important events,
Right.
anniversaries,
Yeah.
retirement, using affirmations,
Okay.
positive statements in the present tense that align with your values.
Got it.
He also says craft your mission statement by considering your different roles in life,
Okay.
parent, professional, community member, and then set goals within each to create that balance.
And it's not just about individual mission statements.
No,
The book also talks about family mission statements.
absolutely. A shared family mission statement, it can be powerful.
Okay.
For navigating challenges, staying aligned, it's built on agreed-upon principles,
Right.
rather than being tossed around by individual moods or crises.
It's like a guiding document.
Exactly.
Right.
And he gives the example of a hotel chain with a mission focused on uncompromising personalized service. And that shaped everything,
Wow.
from hiring to customer interactions.
Yeah.
Because like the DNA of the organization.
Okay, so we've envisioned our end and set our guiding principles. Now we move to habit 3. Put first things first. This is about time management and priorities.
Exactly. Habit 3 is the discipline of effective self-management.
Okay.
So it's about organizing and executing around your priorities. What's most important, as defined by habit 2. And here's where he introduces his time management matrix.
Ah, yes, that 4-quadrant grid. I think a lot of people find that really useful. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So the matrix has 2 axes,
Okay.
urgency and importance. Quadrant 1 is urgent and important.
Yeah.
Crises, deadlines, pressing problems. Quadrant 3 is urgent, but not important.
Okay.
Interruptions, certain meetings, other people's priorities.
Got it.
Quadrant 3 is not urgent, not important.
Okay.
Distractions, time wasters, activities that give us little value.
Right.
And the key, Covey says, is quadrant 2. Not urgent, but important.
Okay.
This is where we focus on building relationships, long-term planning, personal development, prevention.
So it's not about constantly putting out fires in quadrant 1. It's about investing time in quadrant 2 to prevent those fires.
Exactly. He says we need to minimize our time in 3rd and 4, strategically shrink IFRAG by focusing on 2.
Okay.
And this links back to habit 2. Knowing your end in mind helps you determine what's truly important
Right.
and allows you to say no to the urgent but unimportant.
So it's more than just time management tricks. It's about aligning our actions with our deeper values and goals.
Right.
The book talks about scheduling priorities, not prioritizing your schedule.
Yes.
What's the distinction?
It's subtle, but it's powerful. Instead of filling your calendar with tasks and then figuring out what matters, you first identify your most important roles and goals for the week based on your mission statement.
Right.
And then you schedule time to work on those priorities. Take control of your week. He calls this weekly organizing, as part of what he terms the 4th generation of time management.
What makes this 4th generation different?
Well, earlier generations, they focused on things like to-do lists
Okay.
and efficiency in managing tasks. But the 4th generation is more principle-centered.
I see.
It's driven by your conscience, aligned with your mission, balanced across roles, organized weekly. It's a more holistic view.
And delegation is a crucial skill when it comes to this, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Effective delegation lets you leverage your time and energy by empowering others.
Right.
And Covey distinguishes between gopher delegation, where you micromanage, and stewardship delegation,
Okay.
where you focus on the results, provide guidelines and resources, establish accountability, and define consequences.
Right.
But you give them autonomy.
That example of training his son to take care of the yard,
Right.
it highlights the power of stewardship delegation.
Yeah. Instead of just saying how to mow, he focused on the outcome,
Right.
a well-maintained lawn,
Right.
and trusted his son to figure out the best way.
It might take a bit more time up front to set up. But it builds competence and initiative and ultimately saves you time.
Right. It's an investment in the person and the relationship, not just a task.
Okay, we've got managing ourselves. Now we move into working with others. Habit 4. Think win-win. What's the main idea here?
Habit 4 is seeking mutual benefit in all your interactions and agreements.
Okay.
It's a mindset that believes everyone can win.
Okay.
He contrasts it with win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, and simply win, where the focus is only on one person's needs.
Win-lose seems so prevalent in competitive environments. What are the hidden costs?
Well, you might get what you want in the short term,
Okay.
but it often damages relationships and breeds resentment.
Right.
He emphasizes the emotional bank account here.
Yeah.
Every time you prioritize your win over their loss, you're making a withdrawal,
Interesting.
eroding trust and cooperation over time.
And lose-win, while it seems passive, it's not a healthy long-term strategy either, is it?
Not at all. Lose-win people often suppress their own needs to please others, which can lead to resentment and exploitation.
Right.
It might seem nice in the moment, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Ultimately harms the relationship.
So win-win is the ideal. What are the components of cultivating a win-win mindset?
So Covey outlines 5 dimensions: character, relationships, agreements, systems, and processes.
Okay.
Character is the foundation, built on integrity, maturity, which is the balance between courage and consideration, and an abundance mentality. The belief there's enough for everyone.
Okay.
Strong relationships built on a high emotional bank account make win-win agreements possible.
Right.
These agreements clearly define desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences.
Got it.
Organizational systems should support win-win, and negotiation processes should aim for mutually beneficial outcomes.
The abundance mentality is so powerful. It's the opposite of thinking life is a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scarcity mentality makes you see every interaction as a competition.
Right.
If someone wins, you lose.
Yeah.
But abundance mentality fosters collaboration, creativity, knowing multiple people can achieve success.
It's a huge difference.
It is. He also introduces win-win or no deal.
Okay.
You'll only proceed if there's mutual benefit. Otherwise, walk away.
The software company negotiating with the bank president,
Right.
they were prepared to walk away if it wasn't beneficial for both.
Exactly. And even when you're dealing with someone who has a strong win-lose mentality,
Yeah.
he says focus on your circle of influence, build that emotional bank account, listen deeply, express your needs courageously, and stay proactive.
Okay.
You can't force someone to think win-win, but you can influence the interaction.
And these principles can even transform things like training and accountability within organizations.
Right. Leading to more engaged and responsible teams.
So habit 4 is about building those strong, mutually beneficial relationships. Now we move to habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is about communication, right?
Right on. Habit 5 is like the cornerstone of effective interpersonal communication.
Okay.
The core principle is empathic listening, genuinely trying to understand the other person's perspective, feelings, needs before expressing your own.
Right.
He cautions against what he calls autobiographical responses, where we evaluate, probe, advise, or interpret based on our own experiences instead of truly listening.
I recognize those traps. It's easy to jump in with our own opinions or try to solve their problem based on what we would do.
Exactly. Empathic listening, it involves rephrasing the content, reflecting the feeling of what they're saying,
Got it.
giving them psychological air, making them feel heard. It's not just mirroring, it's grasping their meaning and emotional state.
That example in the book with the father and his son struggling at school
Yes.
really shows how ineffective our typical responses can be,
Yeah.
and how powerful empathic listening can be to uncovering the real issue.
Right. The father's initial reactions, questioning, offering solutions, minimizing the problem, it made his son withdraw.
Yeah.
But when he truly listened, reflected his son's frustration, the real issue came out, which was a reading difficulty.
It wasn't about the surface stuff.
That's
It's not
how-
just about using the techniques, though, right? There has
Yeah.
to be a genuine desire to understand.
Absolutely. The techniques are just tools. Without that sincere desire, it can feel manipulative.
Yeah.
The genuine desire builds trust and creates safety for open communication. And it connects us to the Greek philosophy of ethos,
Okay.
your credibility, pathos, understanding their emotions, and logos, logic. He says you need that trust and understanding, ethos and pathos, before you can effectively present your logic, logos.
So seeking first to understand is something we could always do,
Yes.
regardless of how the other person is communicating.
Exactly.
It puts us in control in our circle of influence.
It does. It's a proactive choice that can really improve our relationships and communication.
Now we come to habit 6. Synergize. This sounds like creating something greater than the sum of its parts.
That's it. Synergy is the principle that when people work together genuinely, they can achieve much more than individually.
Okay.
It's about valuing differences, open communication, and creating new possibilities.
Right.
It requires trust and vulnerability.
The book talks about different levels of interaction, from defensive to truly synergistic. Can you elaborate on those?
Sure. So at the lowest level, communication is defensive, guarded.
Right.
People are protecting their positions.
Right.
Then it can be respectful, transactional.
Right.
We exchange information, get things done.
Got it.
But at the synergistic level, communication is creative, transformational. People feel safe to be open, disagree constructively, and build on each other's ideas.
Interesting.
And that leads to third alternative solutions better than anyone's initial proposals.
So instead of compromising or settling, synergy helps us discover new and better solutions by valuing different perspectives.
Exactly. Covey says, good, you see it differently. Help me see what you see.
I like that.
Recognizing that our different experiences are assets, not liabilities.
The examples in the book, the corporate team creating their mission statement, the couple finding a vacation solution.
Right. Synergy isn't just agreement, it's creative collaboration, finding those third alternatives, which are often far superior. But as he points out, it doesn't just happen.
Right.
It requires the foundation of the previous 5 habits.
Okay.
Trust, understanding, a win-win mindset, and the discipline to prioritize.
So synergy is the natural outcome when we practice the other habits.
Yes.
Allowing us to tap into collective intelligence and creativity.
It's the fruit of interdependent living, where we leverage our differences.
We've reached the final habit, habit 7, sharpen the saw. This sounds like taking care of ourselves so we can continue to be effective.
Exactly. Sharpen the Saw is continuous self-renewal
Okay.
in 4 dimensions. Physical, taking care of your body.
Okay.
Spiritual, connecting with your values and purpose.
Right.
Mental, continuing to learn and grow. And social, emotional, nurturing relationships and your emotional bank account. It's a sustainable lifestyle for effectiveness.
So it's working smarter, not just harder, by investing in ourselves.
Right.
This falls into that important non-urgent quadrant 2, right?
It does. Because it's not urgent, it's easy to put off.
Right.
But it's crucial for maintaining our ability to be effective in all areas.
It's proactive.
Yes, we have to make a conscious effort.
The book shows how these 4 dimensions are all interconnected. How do they influence each other?
They're very interdependent. For example, exercise can boost your mental clarity, make you more effective mentally. Spiritual renewal can provide peace and resilience, improving your interactions. It's an upward spiral.
And neglecting one can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Like if you're physically run down, it's harder to be mentally sharp and emotionally balanced.
Burnout happens when we neglect these things for too long.
It often does.
Yeah.
And renewing each dimension reinforces the other habits.
Okay.
So taking care of your health enhances your proactivity. Connecting with your values strengthens your leadership. Continuous learning improves your management.
Right.
And nurturing relationships builds your capacity for interdependence.
The weightlifter needing to let his muscles recover, and Gordon's spiritual renewal at the beach,
Right.
they highlight the importance of this process.
Exactly. It's about creating balance and investing in our long-term well-being and effectiveness. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Well, we've taken a pretty comprehensive deep dive into Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
We have?
And we explored this framework for moving from dependence to interdependence through principle-centered living and continuous self-renewal.
Yeah.
Hopefully this has given you some valuable insight, clearer understanding of these principles for personal and interpersonal effectiveness.
Absolutely.
And now you've got a solid foundation to explore these habits further. Consider how you can apply them in your own life. What habit resonated most with you? What shifts are you thinking about making? We encourage you to read the book and reflect on how these principles can empower you to live a more effective and meaningful life.
And what I find really insightful is that these habits aren't just quick fixes. They're a holistic approach to developing character and competence.
Exactly. It's a journey of growth and application.
Yeah.
Please subscribe to the Nonfiction Insights channel.